Hi, this is Dennis with Second Chance Tackle. Today I have the opportunity to work on a classic. This one is a reel that a lot of people enjoy, and it's been around for quite some time, so I'm going to call this one a classic. This one was sent in by Scott. Scott had asked me to work on two of the reels that his dad did. I worked on a Martin reel, and now I'm going to work on the Shimano Bantam 200. And according to the information I was able to find, this reel was made in 1982. So it's been out there a while now. It's treasured. A lot of folks like these, and they're high dollar items if you go to buy them in the used marketplace. I believe this is an aluminum case, all aluminum reel, I believe. And so you don't see any hints or suggestions that there's corrosion or any of the like on that. And we're going to take this apart. We'll give you the inside look on that. We'll tune this one up for Scott, and I will make sure that he can take this one fishing again. So I start by removing the exterior pieces, and as I do, I want to take a moment to thank our first responders and essential personnel and everybody involved in keeping us safe during this pandemic. I do appreciate your efforts. It looks like this Omicron variant of the coronavirus is just driving us all nuts. We all just want to get back to kind of life as usual, and it seems to just be getting in the way again. All right, so we're just going to try and get that clip up. I use the razor knife to do that. That's a hold fast so that this doesn't spin. When you rotate, it doesn't loosen and cause your handle to loosen as well. All right, I just need to find my little wrench here to take that nut off. I believe that's a 10mm nut. So let's go ahead and find that 10mm wrench. Probably should have set this up ahead of time. But while I'm looking for that, let me remind you that if you enjoy looking at videos like this and you want to see more, we'll just hit that subscription button, and that'll enable you to see the videos that I post. And if you see the notification section of that, well, that's the easiest way to know that a new one is on board, and it might be one of the ones that you like to watch. I work on all kinds of reels. I work on bait casters like this, freshwater reels, saltwater reels, and everything in between, as well as the spinning reels, trolling reels, and the like. All right, you notice that there was a Phillips head screw that was under the cap holding the gear sleeve to the gear post. With that out of the way, we can remove the handle. And while I work on the reels, I like to just kind of give them a cleaning while we're at it too. So this reel has some beautiful materials in it. You'll see why it's a fan favorite, if you will, and why people still seek these today. All right, while I'm at it, I'm going to take this star adjuster off. And I haven't been inside of one of these, so what I do when I haven't been inside of one of these, I go to the internet and I try and get a schematic for the reel. And this one shows the exploded view, so it tells me what I can anticipate underneath. It shows me the drag stacks and the like, and that's what I follow along with if I get stuck. One of the things that I also do, as you can tell, is I take pictures. I take the pictures by way of a video camera here, but I recommend you take pictures along the way as well. That will give you the opportunity to see the way that you took the pieces and parts off. Take it at critical junctures, like when you open up the case, and that way you'll see the orientations, and if you get stuck, you have a reference point back. Now, I do videos, just because that comes along with YouTube. You don't have to do the videos. Take the still pictures or whatever, but take pictures just so you know what's going on. Well, we're going to see if the case comes off without removing these two screws, and it does. There's just a little bit of dirt inside here. So let's go wipe that down. I'm going to remove the spool. There's a bearing on the back side, so I'm going to make sure that that gets oil. And with all reels, I use fishing reel oils and greases. Don't use household greases or other things that, well, just may not be the right piece. Go ahead and spend the extra few dollars to get the right oils and greases. You won't ever regret it. I've taken too many reels apart that have been used where people have used things like, well, car greases or white lithium greases designed for garage doors or whatever, and put them into reels, and it's always a bad thing in between. You'll notice on the back of the spool we have two spool breaks they ride in a ring here. It might be hard to see. They ride in a ring. If you don't push those spool brakes in when you go to reinstall, they sometimes get trapped on that ring, and then you can't get the reel working because, well, it's stuck. Make sure that you put those brakes in before you reinstall the spool. Just put a little dab of grease onto the side of that spool then, where it's going to go inside the bearing, just to help with a little bit of that reel operation. With that, I'm going to do the same thing onto the spool shaft that's going to go into the main gears. That's how you take care of that side. If you look underneath here, this is just black paint that's, or finish. I'm not sure if it's paint or a plastic coating. There's a bearing here. I'm going to oil that bearing. And I think you're beginning to see why this reel is so well liked. It's well-made reel. You don't have any kind of sources for corrosion on it. You do have a little paint loss on that little trim ring there, but other than that, this reel is very well made. And you'll see when we remove these the side plate here, the extent of which the internal materials match the exteriors. There's two screws that hold them on. I'm taking them off. And those of you wondering where those screws and pieces are going, I have a parts tray. I use the bottom of a fast food container in this case. Sometimes it's the bottom of a milk jug and so on. But I put all my pieces and parts in there. That way I don't lose them during the course of the service. And as I go to reinstall, well, I know where they are. All right, there's two springs that are pushing this case up. Let's pull this case off. Here you're going to see the spring action then. We have two springs that are sitting over the yoke. Those are going to go right into the parts tray, because if I don't, well, springs have a habit of just kind of walking away. We have a collar on the gear sleeve now. We have to pull that whole gear sleeve off. And notice that we have a pinch or a forked anti-reverse, which was typical of the time. I'm going to remove that anti-reverse. And we're going to remove the pieces on the stack here because we want to make sure that, well, the drags are in good condition. With those removed, you can generally push through to get to the rest of this. There is a kind of a fabric washer on the back here. Yep, it's fabric. So I'm going to take some drag grease. In this case, I'm going to use Cal's Universal Drag Grease. I'm going to use my gloved hand to spread that through. Now, you don't want to overload a drag washer with drag grease. You just want to make sure that you get into the permeable sections of it so that it remains flexible, doesn't dry out on you. And it's amazing kind of that the reel, after all these years, hasn't dried out from that. All right, that's the collar that goes on top of the ratchet that's going to hold your anti-reverse. If you took that off, notice that there's prongs underneath. Those are the trip levers for your free spool release. Make sure that those are facing down. Also on this reel, make sure that you have that little copper or brass washer on the stem of that post. If you don't, it's going to operate very erratically. All right, I'm just taking the dirt off of this. This is a forked anti-reverse. There's two tines, one on each side of that. They don't need to touch. The failure points with this is usually that they become worn and they start to flare out. If that's the case, you can pinch them back. But in this case, this one's doing just what it should be doing as it is. So we're just going to go ahead and reinstall that. All you do is you kind of work it in so that it can work its way around there. And that's your bottom end of this reel. That washer that we had just lubricated up top, well, that's going to be a friction washer on the bottom here. We have one more washer that came off the post, so take a picture there so you know that what it is or where that is. And I think this is only a one drag washer system. It is. This washer is frozen. This is what I was saying before about keeping these lubricated. You want to make sure that they don't dry out, and that grease will act as a drying agent over time. So the washer is in good condition. It was just stuck to the main drag washer here. So just make sure you clean that drag washer off. That's the way to prevent it from sticking. And you can, this is harder, but you can put a little bit of grease on there just to kind of keep it fresh again. I'm going to go ahead and take that, put that back into the main gear, and put that single metal washer on top of it. Check the teeth on the main gear now. Make sure that they're all uniform, that they're not bent, chipped, or cracked in any regard. These seem to be fine. So I'm just going to get a grease brush now. I'm going to apply grease to the outside rim of this so that that remains nice and lubricated. Just like that. And then we can put the whole assembly back onto the stack so we don't lose that. And then what I did was I ordered these the way they came off. So I have a flat washer, and I have a tension washer, which is a bell shape or a curve shape. It's not a flat one. Then I had a flat one that went next. Then I had a large rubber or plastic sleeve that went over the top of those. So that section is now done. And I just want one more piece here. I want to take this yoke off and do the same thing that we were doing. Notice on this yoke that the flat side of the case is facing down, and you can always tell where the yoke is by looking for the angle sides of that. So if you got lost in this thing, there's a couple of telltales to tell you that this is facing towards you. You have the cavities for the spring, you have the indentation for the pinion gear, and you have the slots facing away from you. Now, if this was a dirty reel inside, you could go ahead and remove the jack by pulling the spring. There's no need to do that. There's nothing going on here. It's all slippery. Just going to put a little bit of oil behind it. You can put a grease there if you want. I think greases over time tend to generate dirt, and that dirt just tends to make the reel bog down. So I don't do that. On the pinion gear, this is the side that accepts the spool, so that's facing in. We're going to do the same thing. Check the teeth. They're all doing fine. Get a good amount of the grease on there. Then we can go ahead and put that into the yoke. Then we can put the yoke back on the posts. And we're getting close to reinstalling this reel now. Oops, that fell out. That doesn't snap in, it just rides in that groove. So there we go. Alright, that's all set up for a reinstall. I'm not sure if I got any oil right behind the sleeve there on this, so we'll go ahead and do that as well. We take the gear assembly now. This is the section where that anti-reverse dog is going to hook over. So you want to load this over the top of the gear sleeve, and then you want to circle around so that it can rest on that post, and then everything presses down from there. Right. Now if you're going to test at this point, keep your finger on that anti-reverse dog, because if you don't, it's going to fly out and you're going to have to reset. But what we can do right now is just give it a turn, make sure everything's turning the way it should, and it is. Alright, so now we can reload the case, but before we do that, we have the two springs that go over the yoke. So grab those out of your parts tray, center them and make sure that they're working properly. And now we can take the assembly and the cover, line the two holes for the case mounted screws together. Those are very small screws. That's one of the reasons why we put the screws into those parts trays. And then just take your time, center the screws here, and tighten them down. And those of you that know me and small screws know that this might be an adventure. If you have any questions on this reel or any reel in particular, if you maybe you're working on one and you're stuck along the way, if you leave a question in the comments section, I do try to answer those to the best of my ability. And if I don't know the answer, I'll try and point you to where you can get an answer, but I certainly don't know everything about a fishing reel, and that would be the best that I'll make my best efforts to kind of answer those questions for you. Star adjuster goes next. have that screw that goes to hold the assembly together. Overall, a beautiful reel. You can see why it is kind of the reel of choice, even though it was made in the 80s. It's one of those reels that's just endured. I guess I can't put that on until I put the handle on. I should have known that. That being the screw here that holds the centerpiece down. So next up is the tension washer that fits between the handle and the adjuster. Now we can put that screw back in. And you can see just the beauty of the casework on this, all of the gearing and the like. Just tightening everything up before I put the case nut on. That was a 10mm nut. Now we want to just align this nut so that we can have that hold fast to work into that screw. And generally speaking, if you have a point pointing right at it, there's a good chance that that clip is going to just sit right as you go to reinstall. And you can see we're almost on that. We're just a little bit past. This is one of those where you can actually make the adjustment with the wrench after that piece is on. If you have a plastic cap, that's probably not going to work. All right, tie this down. Nothing left here but to go load this onto the wheel. We've already greased the shaft. Put that back in now. Load this up, make sure you get a nice tight fit to it. These are thumb screws, they don't require a lot of pressure. If for some reason you have a wobbly case, I guess you could go in with pliers, but generally hand strength is enough to seat that properly. Give that a ride, it's a beautiful operating reel. Make sure that your free spool is working. It is. Spin the wheel from a casting perspective. You may want to take a little bit off. Boy, that just, with those two ball bearings, you can see why people just love this reel. That casting is just going to stay and stay and stay. The other feature that I like about this is that the line guide does not move when you're in casting position. So what you want to do if you're casting this, before you cast, you want to make sure that the line guide is centered. When you go to free spool now, that's the, I guess, the optimal distance with the line coming off from both sides of the spool. If you have the spool all the way over on this side, when you go to cast, it's going to create extra drag when you're coming from the left to try and thread through the right to go into your eyelets. So best practice is to get it centered and then go into cast mode so that you don't abnormally bind or put extra tension onto the sides and the line from a casting distance perspective. So that's it. This is your Bantam 200. It's a beautiful reel by Shimano. You've seen all of the positives to it. If you have the opportunity to find one of these, by all means, go get one of these. If you're into the low-profile baitcasters, it's just a beautiful reel all around. So I hope you've enjoyed that. If you did, please like it. If you want to see more, please subscribe again. And to everybody, please stay safe, stay well, and stay watching. This is Dennis with Second Chance Tackle. Have a great day.